What's up, everybody? So, the last time we left off, I was telling you guys a little bit about how we can tune our senses into understanding a more metaphysical reality, right? So, when we understand that consciousness is unified and universal, and that we're connected to this divine source of consciousness or this great spirit through nature, through ourselves, through our intellect, our intelligence, through our families, our ancestors, even through the deities that we worship. We connect with this great universal consciousness, and it's free. Like it's one of those things where you don't have to give anything, where there are some things like Santeria, for instance, that you have to give in order to receive the magic, or with a psychic you have to pay the psychic to give you information, or even a university, you have to pay a university to give you an education. Connecting with this divine consciousness, with this all powerful, omnipotent, omni-intelligence source of energy, this reservoir of the universe's memoirs, history, future, past, present. Like, when you start to tap into those records, when you start to tap into that knowledge, that consciousness, you begin to see it laid out in front of you. It's very similar to like a computer simulation where you see code and where you see the skeletal fabric of this interconnection that we have. You don't actually have to give anything to it. So if, let's say you're speaking from a Christian perspective, loving God and praising God does not require anything from you other than surrender. That's a lot. Now you're gonna say, Camila, wait a minute, surrender? You're saying I have to pay nothing, but I have to surrender all of myself. Hear me out. It's not necessarily that you are surrendering yourself, as in the value that you have. You're not giving yourself away. It's more like walking into the world with an open heart, with open eyes, with an open mind. By surrendering yourself, to the pride or the ego that keeps us separate from each other, that keeps us separate from this divine source of consciousness or energy or light or knowledge or intelligence, however you call it. We tell ourselves, I would rather live in darkness and ignorance and get to do it my way than seeing the world and reality for what it is, being awakened or enlightened to it, and then accepting it. So when I say surrender, one way of looking at surrender is a form of radical acceptance. Accepting the world, accepting reality as it is, radically, without trying to convert it or change it to our own vision, right? So I was telling you guys that sometimes when we begin to see the self in others, like when I saw myself in my dog, and was somehow aware of the fact that she was aware of that as well, that she's aware of the connection, even if she's not intelligent enough to understand that connection the way I do in words, that her being as an animal is so connected to nature that she is also connected to that divine consciousness as purely and innocently as she can be. And that can scare us. That can be very daunting, because then all of a sudden that sense of self is removed. It's like, wait a minute, if I'm connected to this great consciousness, then who am I? Am I the great consciousness, or is it part of me? Do I take it from that, or is it being stolen from me? We start to panic. We start to have this crisis, this existential crisis of existence, this existential crisis of self, of understanding our identity. Because now I'm not just me. Now I have to worry about the feelings of others. I have to worry about the responsibility of what it means to be connected, empathic. Now take that on a greater scale, right? Let's say we just do this with our dog. Or we start to do it with the people in our lives, in our families, in our relationships. Maybe we start to do it at work or at school. We start to connect with other people. Well, it's a very overwhelming feeling, because now Now there's a lot of responsibility behind understanding what it means to be in connection with all beings, with all things. There's a responsibility. But imagine if you did that on a universal level. If you started to connect with others, with all things, with strangers, maybe with people with different political beliefs, different nationalization backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. What if you took it a step further? What if you started to see the self in all beings, like the blade of grass, or in the sunshine, or in the sky, or in the mountains? What if you started to see all of the universe as connected with you? Now, you don't have to know the mathematics. But Camila, I'm not a physicist or biologist or whatever. I don't know what you're talking about. Just hear me out. Yesterday, our pastor said something from Second Baptist Church, which is a church that I follow. I appreciate the pastor a lot. He was talking about meditation from a Christian background, but also brought up the ideals and principles of meditation in the Eastern world. So it was pretty cool. Imagine if we connected with a great God, or the power of the universe, the source of energy within the universe, the consciousness of the universe. And we remembered this quote, "Be still and know that I am God." Right? Well, if you just be still for a moment and understand that this universe, this great spirit, this great energy is connected, and that you are connected with it. You are a part of it. Not just a small part of it, but no, you are just a part of it. Imagine a God that is non-discriminate. He doesn't see small parts, big parts. Consciousness is not discriminate in that it sees the micro or the macro. It's just one. And could you imagine connecting with that, which connects with all beings, with all selves, unanimously, ubiquitously, compassionately, and took on the responsibility of being connected with all things? That consciousness, not just with our families, with our friends, with our school, with the nature around us, but to begin to see ourselves through the eyes of the great unknown, the great spirit, the great knowledge, the source of energy. And when you start to begin to connect with that, well, the panic starts to go away. The fear or lack of abundance goes away because you realize that there's nothing that you have to give other than this surrender, this acceptance, that all things are connected, all things are conscious, all things have a spirit, all things are a part of great spirit, including you. And in that way, we ourselves can begin to embody the same responsibility that comes with that connection, with that conscious awareness, with that awakening. That could be showing compassion to people that you love, showing compassion to people that you get frustrated with. That could be showing compassion towards yourself. But when we begin to identify with a great spirit, with great consciousness, well, then the story's not done there. You see, because it's not just about being consciously aware, you know? Something amazing happens where we begin to evolve with this conscious awareness through this great awakening and divine personality, this divine intelligence. We begin to be able to decipher the code or the language of the universe, of nature around us. And not just nature separate from us, but us as one with nature. Society as one with nature, as one with the universe, with the cosmos. And when we begin to make these great connections between nature, the cosmos, and society, well, then on an individual level, we begin to be able to maneuver through not just this world, not just through society, but through this universe as conscious awareness, as conscious beings that transcend life and death. So you might be asking me, well, Camila, what does this all mean? What is your point here? Well, my point is a very small one right now. that when we begin to tune our bodies and our awareness and our beings with nature and with society and with this great cosmic force, this great cosmic awareness, we begin to interpret a language that a lot of people in this world actually fight to prevent you from tapping into. Right. See, because people that make money and profit off of understanding this awareness, see, they don't understand it all the way. They have grasped onto it just enough to be able to, in a very human, natural, material way, monetize it. But monetizing it isn't the purpose. And when you become truly aware of that, you begin to see through the illusion of even those in this world who try to tell you that they are the source of connection for these things. Even me, even myself. But see, for me, as a nonprofit entity, I've built my life around learning how not to monetize this great awakening. I'm not interested in the $1,000 retreats. I'm not interested in charging people thousands of dollars to hear me speak. I'm only interested in my relationship with the great source of consciousness, with the great divine. And expressing that in every single way possible. Through being, through breathing, through just my part in this universe, through conversing about it, through even expressing it through science and art. But when we begin to realize that this is not something that can be taken advantage of, that there are consequences for taking advantage of people and stuff like this, we begin to sit in the seat of our power. And when we begin to sit in the seat of our power and no longer look towards external sources for this great connection, for this divine connection that we have with the source of consciousness, with the spirit, with the light of our universe, of our awareness, of our intelligence. We begin to tune our senses into interpreting, translating that divine consciousness, that message. And now you could say, well, there's millions and millions of sources of information. I'm getting so many words, so many messages. There's so much to put. I gotta consolidate it all. I gotta compartmentalize it all. I have to separate all of it from what I know and what I don't know. Or from the parts that I know that seem like they're not connected. Whoa, mind, take a seat, is what I tell myself. Whoa, brain, you already know. You know what you know. So don't look more into what you don't know. There's nothing there, right? And then when I start to do that, when I start to catch myself a little bit like, wait a minute, Camila, you're doing it again. You're trying to find the answer. The answer's already there. Just listen. Just speak. Just see what's around you. Feel intrinsically, internally, what it is that we're all connecting to, that we're interpreting, that we're translating. It's very similar to when a child is walking around in the grass outside and looking at everything in detail. They're so small and the world's so big, so they can look at the small things in detail. The way that sometimes we forget as we get older, as we get bigger, right? As our brains start to make those permanent connections. But there is something beautiful. See, for me, when I was younger, I became aware of these things that were metaphysical at a very young age. So I was able to wire my synapses, wire my brain, my awareness in a way that I learned to translate things that were seemingly not there, but that guided me in life. They were my naguales, my guardian angels, my ancestors, however you looked at it. But those forces, those energies guided me. The Holy Spirit, I came to understand it as. But see, the Holy Spirit wasn't just something that was silent and dead inside of me. It was something that was awake and alive, and it spoke. And it speaks through me, which is why I allow it to speak. I allow her divine consciousness to speak through me. And I have trained my body, trained my mind on a cellular, atomic level, I keep saying this, to do so. because it's hard in this world. It's hard to integrate the spirit in this material world. There's so much contamination. There's so much contradiction. To live, you must kill. To kill, you must give up a part of who you are. Give up a part of living, right? And I'm thinking of the bugs that I'm watching outside, but obviously, like, we've got horrible things that happen in this world that humanity does, which is why we live by scriptures that say, thou shalt not commit murder, right? We live based on these principles and archetypes because we have been a species of conscious awakening and awareness for millennia. So we understand the contradiction, the hypocrisy, the corruption of this material world. But there are sciences and scriptures that teach us and guide us. But more importantly, all of that is centered around pointing towards the self. The great intelligence that you already are. The great cosmic awareness that you already are. The relationship that you already have with the great divine, great spirit, with Krishna, with God, with the Lord, however you name it. So, I began to tune my body into understanding these frequencies. I was a musician. I played violin in 6th grade, was singing very young, loved to count and do these things that helped me keep time, right? That helped me understand time. And I would count how many seconds that would pass from a moment of awareness to the moment it was integrated into this world. And I realized that there are cultures surrounding that concept, understanding that concept of our awareness to consciousness and its relation to time and space. Now, the space part's a little hard, but timing's not that difficult. Timing just involves counting. And one way that we count in Krishna consciousness is through prayer. Or through scripture, through the numbers in scripture. Numerology comes down to the basis of it. If you're a computer coder, then it's coding for you. But we begin to understand this world in increments of time. However it may be, whether it's for you music, whether it's the sun. I actually had to spend a lot of time in nature, climbing in the volcanoes and going out on road trips out of the city to start to really tune my bio clock. As Andrew Huberman says, Dr. Andrew Huberman says, I had to tune my body to the movement of the sun. And I study astronomy, so I also began to tune my body and my awareness to the movement of the lights of the planets and the stars as well. Because that's what our sun is, it's just a big star. So we begin to follow the light with our eyes, and our brains interpret it through our nervous system, and our bodies begin to tune with the light of the universe, of the cosmos. And that's time. That light reaching us, that light moving across our sky every night, the way that our planet rotates and the way that our planet rotates around the sun, all of that is time. That movement is time. Our experience of it, the way we see it through light is time, and through space, time, right? Chronos, the Greek word, or the God. Chronological order. But see, the Lord God, consciousness, the great divine, transcends time. So the least that we can do is keep track of it. The least that we can do in our prisons of body, in our containment within this universe, is to keep track of time, aware of our own relationship to this consciousness, to our conscious awareness. So we have this great awareness, right? And all of a sudden, let's say you're in a group of people and you become aware of the fact that something has moved within that group of people. A spirit, an energy, a wave, something has impacted this group of people, or just the individual, if the individual is aware of it enough. And you can begin to count the seconds between the instant that it happened, the instant that consciousness moved, and the instant that the being became aware of it. It's usually no more than like 3 seconds, maybe a nanosecond sometimes, if you're really, really connected with it. But it takes time. See, consciousness transcends time, but it takes us time to awaken to it. Like light. Light travels from the sun to our earth within 8 minutes. And we will not perceive the sunlight of our star until that 8 minutes has passed. So if our star dies, we don't know for 8 minutes, right? So in the same way, when consciousness moves, when consciousness speaks, it takes time for us to be aware of that. Some of us takes more time than others. Some of us never become aware of it. I wonder if there are some of us who transcend time altogether. Is my goal. My goal is to be so connected with the consciousness, with the divine, that I don't see the separation between the self and the divine. That I don't count anymore the seconds between my awareness or the awareness of others in this movement of consciousness. Transcending the sense of control. Surrendering completely to the universe. Whether that's in love, whether that's in raising your family, whether that's in politics even, in the state of the world, whether it's in life and death. Fully transcending the sense of control and the ego's necessity to dominate or to understand that consciousness. Just simply surrendering to it as nature intended. Like children surrendering to this great phenomena of life, waking up and opening their eyes, 4 and 5 years old, realize they've been alive for years, but only now can they actually move their arms and move their hands and look through the lens of their eyes to understand the world. And they don't question it. They don't question time. Their relationship with the divine, with consciousness, is still one. But then around the age of 6, around the age of 7, we start to become self-aware. We become self-conscious. That maybe the relationship, we could begin maybe to slow down a bit. The rate of growth, the rate of connections. And then there's a phenomena that takes place where we start to feel very self-conscious, that we're not going to be able to maintain that connection, that genuine, authentic relationship with us and nature, with us and the divine consciousness. But there are avenues to take: traditions, practices, scriptures, disciplines. For me, it was discipline. It was mixed martial arts. It was experiencing transcendental meditation from the perspective of Tibetan monks, understanding that there was a path that we could take into life, onto death, that would cultivate a spiritual and conscious awareness with the divine, with the cosmos, with all of reality. And we call that samsara in Buddhism or in Sanskrit, the cycle of life and death, which can be transcended. But the difference between these meditative philosophies, Mayavadi as it's called in Sanskrit, is that there's an impersonal connection with that, not recognizing the divine consciousness as we do in Krishna consciousness or Christianity, which is more of a form of Mahavadi. Seeing the great divine, the great cosmos, as not an illusion of nothingness, but as a personality that we are also in connection with. And then we begin to worship and praise that great consciousness and that great awareness. And yes, even in that way, praise and worship, we can meditate on it. Meditate into a sense of nothingness. Meditate ourselves into a state of pure conscious awareness of this great divine. Without having to create an attachment towards it. Without having to create that separation, that sense of separation. See, attaching ourselves to something means that we're separate from it. Being aware of it means that we are connected with it. So, going back to what I was talking about, we begin to connect our senses to this awareness. And we've developed practices, sadhanas, as it's in yoga, as it's described in yoga, to develop and strengthen those moments when we are consciously aware of the great divine. For me, it's the Maha Mantra. And those senses can be things that we hear. It can be the voice of another person. It can be a sound in nature. It can be a flash of light. We take these signs in the universe that we perceive with our senses and we translate it into a language. And if we maintain a connection with the great divine through conscious awareness, through meditation, through mantra, through physical practices, and renunciations, taking away the distractions, we stay in connection with this, what I call the great conversation between the self and the divine. Because do you think that the divine is working behind shadows? No, I don't think so. I think that the great divine is like public records. We can tap into the great divine and find out what's going on in the universe, what it all means, just by asking, just by reaching inside of ourselves, reaching inward and connecting with those things around us. As Jesus Christ said, thou ask and thou shalt receive, right? And it's not necessarily asking in the sense that you're going through scriptures, that you're going through dogmatic relations, that you're like dogmatic philosophies, that you are going to teachers, which many teachers and many gurus can answer these things for you. It's more so that the knowledge stays present. The knowledge is already there. And that when we begin to translate that great conversation and stay centered within it, we become unchanging, constant. And the universe flows and moves around us. And we become one with all things. One time, I was in a near-death experience, and my life was almost taken. It's a big hit to the head, and suffocating weight on top of me. And the circumstances were terrifying. But in this circumstance, as I was sitting in between worlds, unsure whether or not I was going into the next phase of existence or staying in this one, I began to meditate. I began to chant. Because now my physical circumstances were beyond my control. And I had to surrender that. And I used all of my senses to connect with the divine in that moment. Because I was terrified. My body had been fighting. My body was willing itself to live. Until it couldn't do that anymore. And when I surrendered to this great consciousness, to Great Spirit, to Krishna, to the Lord, Jesus Christ was there too. Jesus Christ was actually there with me in that moment. But when I was facing the deities, when I was facing my deities, and I was meditating and praying and chanting, my answer was given. I saw the light, saw the darkness, saw the Divine Mother, and was about to walk through the threshold when the mantra proved to me to be eternal life. And I stayed there in the room. I stayed in my body, did not fully leave. But that near-death experience allowed me to have an understanding that these things that we see in the world, that we practice, do come to an answer, do come to fruition. That death is an illusion and an experience of life. And that there's no reason to be afraid. And those near-death experiences are, in a way, our answer to this great mystery. That the ego, the self, it really works in conjunction with the body. It needs a body. But that the spirit soul does not need a body. The spirit soul has a source of energy. And that spirit soul is not just light. It's not just energy. It is intelligence. It is memory. It has a memory. And when I saw my light leaving my body, preparing to leave my body, as I had seen it before do on psychedelics, this time it was actually returning to its source. And the body was being left into darkness. The body was being left to the oblivion, to be decomposed into the ground, to become life in other beings. The body was being left in the darkness, and so too was the mind. But that the spirit, the soul, this light that carries on, it is intelligent, and it carries a message. And when it returns to Great Spirit, it will bring back the memories of that life to Great Spirit. And it will recount its story to the Great Divine. And the Great Divine will say, okay, well, you get to choose now. You served me. You left the world the way I told you to do so. You did not cheat me. So you get two choices. You can stay here with me and forget all of suffering. Or you can go back into your life. You can go back into the world, back into the universe, and play as part of me. I give you that choice. That's what great consciousness is. Consciousness is a choice. And we can choose whether or not we live consciously. We can choose whether or not we practice every day to be consciously aware, to take on the responsibility of what it means to be consciously aware, and to see the divine connection in all beings through the soul, to live from the soul, to live this world and maneuver through this cosmos with an open heart and an open mind, and with your eyes open. So if consciousness is light, then when I'm saying leave my body in the oblivion, does that mean that we live in darkness? Does that mean that I'm actually surrounded by darkness? No. See, because the body itself experiences light. It itself is a source of light. Life is a source of light. But it must have a reflection. And this world is a reflection of that divine light. We're not in a dead universe. This universe is not a hell. It is not a source of suffering. No. This universe is a manifestation of the great divine consciousness. Nature itself is a reckoning force of the great consciousness. Life and death is a result of consciousness. Transcending life and death is eternal consciousness, is eternal knowledge. And that sustains this world, that sustains this universe. So when we leave this world and we leave our bodies to go into the next womb, to go into the next pit of darkness, where we will be born again, to suffer, to remember, the dog got me. Me pegó el perro.
¿Quién?
Mira, un morado. Yo creo que el perro se me pegó. Estuve jugando. I was playing with the dogs and they gave me a huge bruise. I thought it was paint. That this world is not dead, that this universe is not dead. And when we come back, when we choose to be born again, we carry that light of the divine consciousness of the Lord of God, of our God, into this world. And we're surrounded by that light. And in those places in which we hide, in those places in which consciousness hides from itself in darkness, there too is the opportunity, the hope, that the name of God, that the light of God, that the power and the source of consciousness, of eternal knowledge, of the cosmos, will light all places, will bring light into all places of darkness, and knowledge into all places of darkness. The more that we don't know, the more there is to know. And that is how God works. If God is all-powerful, then those things that he does not know are only places in which he has already learned to find. If we look at the world through the eyes of an all-intelligent being, all-compassionate being, there is not hatred in those places of darkness. There's no fear in those places of darkness. What is there is the name of God. In the darkness is the name of God, and when it is spoken, the light shines and it spreads. Because I've seen it in a dream. So I told you guys I would share with you a little bit about how this language of consciousness can be interpreted through life and death experiences, near-death experiences, and through dreams. So I'll share with you a dream that I had. I was in a pit. It was very, very dark. It was slimy. Everywhere around me, slimy. I was in a pit full of other souls, other beings, all naked, all writhing. We were all writhing in this darkness, covered in what felt like mud, slimy mud. And all of a sudden, I became aware of the presence of two devotees that I knew from the ISKCON temple in Houston that dedicated their whole lives. One left the ashram, the other is still currently there to this day, and is our number one book distributor, one of the number one book distributors in all of the US. And they start chanting the Maha Mantra, and I see little specks of golden light appear in the darkness, very far away from me. And then bing, 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 the light starts to show everywhere, all around me, in this darkness. Little lights, super far distances between them, very small. It showed me the scale, how big this place was that I was in. And then all of a sudden, I start chanting the Maha Mantra. And then I become a source of light. And then all of a sudden, all around me is light. Because once I became illuminated, I didn't live in a world of darkness anymore. I didn't even think or remember the darkness that was surrounding me, because now all of a sudden I was no longer a being in this slimy pit of darkness. I was light, and that light surrounded me. It warmed me all around. It protected me from the slime and the darkness. And the weight of this light became so heavy that the pit fell from beneath, and we all fell through. We all fell from the pit, and we were free. And we were released into light. I actually shared this dream in the ashram for breakfast one morning. It was a July or an August. It was a really pretty day, and I shared that dream with the devotees. I've had dreams of Prabhupada standing before me where I didn't have to fall to my knees and bow. I was with my brother, and all I had to do was stand tall. Yoga, just do yoga right there, just standing right in front of him. I was not required to fall down on my face, but I was allowed to watch him. And as he was walking towards me, I realized that we had just gotten out of a car, and that we were in a playground, and that he was walking down the path of this playground, but he wasn't looking at us. He was looking off to his left, and he was looking at a swing set. And there were these two little children playing on the swing set, a boy and a girl, and I recognized them as Krishna and Radha. Pure light beings. And they were playing. And Krishna was so loved by Prabhupada. Prabhupada loved these children so much that I knew he loved us too. That he saw the innocence within us, and that he blessed us and provided healing through the name of God, through the love of God, through the worship of God, and the innocence that he saw in the Lord, that he saw in all beings. So when we see innocence in God, we begin to be able to see the innocence in ourselves and the innocence in others. And we begin to maneuver through this world like mothers and fathers. Not that we have to change and control others, but that we can share space and hold ourselves so that the compassion of who we are can allow the other to become themselves as well, as we have fully realized. So I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping this one up because this one's a long one. But when we begin to use our senses, baby, un colibrí en los flores rojos, el árbol.
Wow, yeah.
When we begin to see our connection with all of nature, and we begin to interpret that language of consciousness, we can translate it. And when we begin to translate that message, we empower ourselves in the seat of our journey. We empower ourselves in the knowledge that we are going into the unknown, already knowing the source of consciousness, the source of our awareness, the source of our intelligence will give us the answers when we most need them. So that we really just have to sit back and wait. Sit back and wait, meditate, and allow consciousness to reveal itself. No fighting towards it, no fighting for it. Simply allowing it to be, observing it, and letting it pass through you. And when that consciousness passes through you, when that awareness passes through you, we evolve and we ascend little by little by little, transcending these bodies, transcending these lives, these constructs of time and space. So with that being said, I hope that my experience and journey in consciousness, and with the great awareness and the great awakening of our time, has given you a little bit of hope. That I have not told you anything you don't already know. But that now you know that you're not alone. And that you know that there's a path that we take together to become one with the divine and to free ourselves from suffering, to free our world from suffering. That's why beings like us, we begin to pray and meditate on things like world peace. Because we know that the reality of our conscious awareness is the reality that we manifest in this world. So, manifestations of consciousness, of abundance, of peace and prosperity to you all, of love and of healing and of forgiveness, but also of rest, of love and acceptance. And tomorrow we'll talk about a couple more dream experiences that I believe transcended the body and that allowed me to have a closer and deeper understanding also of the conscious journey of the self. So, I think that's it for today. We spoke about tuning in our senses, interpreting the language of the consciousness awareness around us, the compassion and responsibility that goes behind being consciously aware, and how in context that frees us from the cycle of birth and death. And I'm literally watching a hummingbird fly in our bushes in our bougainvillea tree. It's so nice. Okay, well, see you guys tomorrow. Peace, love, and namaste.